Well, hello to you. Hope everyone is doing all right today. Um, Today's guest is myself. Abigail and I thought that it would be a good idea to just um, talk about something that I pussyfooted around. No, maybe not pussyfooted around, but just talked about in and out a lot of times. My experience in Kamloops, a religious experience. I would venture to say it was a form of a cult. Now, it wasn't like a Brian Jonestown type of cult or a Waco type of cult, but not all cults are similar, but they do have similar traits, and usually there is a leadership in play that is well, you can Google what cult is, and when I Googled it and looked at it, which we do in this conversation, I was like, yeah, that feels like that's what it was. Um, and so this is something that I wouldn't say is dear to my heart, but it is part of the fabric of who I am, and we're all made up of our experiences. If I was to tell this story to someone who had just been through a civil war, it would feel kind of trite. When my child falls down and grazes his knee, to him, that's the biggest trauma he's had in his life. And so to him, that's a massive deal. And you A/B that with someone who maybe has seen their parents blown up in a war or something. It's very different, but it still has the same type of impact on an individual. I guess we're all able to endure whatever's put in front of us, whether that's a big explosion or a small explosion. It's still an explosion. And I've had a very colorful life. I've had lots of very stressful experiences in my life, lots of accidents, lots of things I've had to overcome. But my experience in Kamloops was a pretty intense one, and one that really affected me long term. I think spiritual abuse, which is, I feel what happened there. It's pretty serious. It's a very deep thing. Whenever you kind of confuse the signals between you, a human being, and God, and someone is in between that signal, maybe perverting that signal or abusing that signal, what happens after death is very personal to us, right? Like our relationship with this higher being, whatever that might be. Maybe you believe there isn't a God and there's nothing after death. Like that's millions of people believe that, but whatever your belief is, it's a serious thing. It's like, this life on earth is very fleeting. If we do live to eternity in another life, that's a serious and deep and meaningful part of our fabric. And so I feel that signal got really confused in my experience in Kamloops. And I just want to say off the bat that I am not interested in running someone's name through the mud. And even though I do bring up a specific person in this podcast, the reason I did that is because I feel like I want to walk against the flow of being afraid of being that name and talking about it and pussyfooting around it. I'm like, I'm allowed, we have free speech, and I'm allowed to say my piece. I'm allowed to talk, and we're all allowed to. And I think it's important to flush it out. But in the same breath, it's so far in the rear view from me, as far as I don't think about it every day. I'm not bitter and angry about it, but it still comes up in conversation because those experiences never leave us. It's like, the scars on my body, which I have a lot, they will never leave. I might be able to heal, but the scars will always be there, and they're there for a reason. They're there to remind me, don't be so reckless. Don't do that thing. Put the protective gear on before you do such and such. And the emotional scars that we have in our life are there to protect us from hopefully going down the same road again. And so, yeah, the motive for me talking about this is to get it all out in the open so we can move on. Hopefully, maybe help somebody. I know there's people listen or watch this podcast that have been in that exact same scenario, in the exact same place, have been there. And maybe this helps in some small way for them to process. I know that there is a lot of shrapnel that was created from this experience. And this isn't an isolated event. They're happening all over the world. I feel like there is a lot of abuse that happens in one form or another in under the umbrella of what some people call the body of Christ, what any religious setup, there is abuse, because there is not a lot of checks and balances. In the world of business, and I have a business, it's hard to get away with stuff because the CRA is right looking over your shoulder. And so there are hoops you have to jump through. There are things that you have to do. I have to pay my WCB, which, if you're not Canadian, that's basically so my employees are protected on the sites that we work on, and you can't get away from it. If you own a business, you have to pay that. You have to pay your taxes, otherwise it's going to come and bite you in the butt. You have to get insurance. You have to get all these things. And in the religious world, especially in the circles that I was in, which was like evangelical, charismatic type of movements, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have just decided to start their business, start their church. And there's nothing stopping my friend down the road who might be able to hang a picture, putting a big sticker on the side of his truck and say, I own a construction company now. He's free to do that, but the customer is going to pay the price for that because he doesn't have experience. And the same with starting up a church. There's nothing stopping anyone starting a movement. You could start one tomorrow. I could start one on this property if I wanted to. And the unfortunate part of that is that people are untrained. There is no checks and balances. There's no oversight. And people are giving themselves they're coming under the tutorage of this so-called spiritual leader, because generally whoever starts these movements has a gift. And then humans being humans, we like to build, we like to grow, we like to make things bigger. It's just part of our fabric. We're not very good at keeping things small and boutique. We want them to be scaled in size, and therein lies damage, I feel, often. I've rarely seen a pure form in my experience, but I am jaded by my experience. So anyway, without rehashing everything that's going to be said in this podcast, I just wanted to give a bit of a preamble there. And yeah, so here we go. Yeah. Is it still snowing down where you are?
Every week we get a dump of snow.
Really?
It's
minus for the first time last night.
You serious? No, we've had a really cold, snowy winter.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well,
are we live?
Yeah, I hit record.
Beauty. How's it going?
It's going all right. Saturday morning, Valentine's Day yesterday, booked a restaurant, did my thing while it was in my head. I'm like, I'm doing it right now. Booked a place to go for dinner.
Excellent.
And yeah, it's kind of funny because when you live in a small town like we do, and you come from a big city, we don't go out to eat barely ever, because we just eat at home and we live rurally. So it's a bit of a drive, So we go out for dinner, and you're just reminded that, yeah, this isn't Vancouver. Like, the food wasn't super hot. It was,
really?
And yeah, it was okay. It was nice to go out, but it was just okay.
Well, you had some amazing restaurants in Deep Cove, Arms Reach, and
yeah. I mean, all over Vancouver is just like top tier. Yeah. So anyway.
You might as well just go to a pub on Vancouver Island and get something deep fried.
Yeah.
Fish and chips.
I don't think it would go over so well on Valentine's, but
no.
Yeah.
Well, brownie points to you then. You actually did something.
Yeah. Well, I forgot the morning of, though. Tara's like, I'm like, what are you doing? She says, I'm making a cake. She always makes a cake for the kids. I was like, it's Valentine's Day. I'm like, oh, shit.
I booked a table.
Yeah. She doesn't take too much offense to it. But yeah.
So we discussed this week about delving into your Kamloops, because we've touched on it so many times now.
Yeah.
You talked about going to doing the dive into that whole story.
We've circled the wagons around the subject and not really gone into it. I think when I think about the experience of Kamloops, it's so far in the rear view mirror, but it's also feels present as well, and Yeah, I guess there's real people that can have their feelings hurt, and if I was a total ass, I wouldn't care, but I'm not.
Hmm.
Um, but I think if we are going to dive into it, I want to preface the conversation with like, I've got no ill will for anyone there. I'm over it. For sure, I've got scars that I still feel when I get, certain things trigger me. So I don't know if I'm healed from everything. I don't know if you ever really fully heal. Like you always walk with a bit of a limp after having an experience like that. But I don't have an axe to grind with anyone or a big grudge anymore. I'm kind of past that.
I think what I've noticed is it comes up so often in podcasts that we do because it was such a major crossroads and a turning point in your life that it's undeniably and like unavoidably a massive earthquake that took place there that really changed the course of your life in many ways. So it's
Yeah.
left a deep impression on you, regardless of
Yeah.
whether there's, like you say, no ill will, but undeniably a massive moment.
Yeah, I think that I was talking to my friend and she had listened to the Heaven Bent podcast when I was being interviewed about Toronto, which was another fairly significant religious experience that I had. And she texted me, and she's way out of all of that as well. And she's like, "I'm really glad you didn't call it a cult because I still don't think it was a cult."
Mm.
And I'm like, "No, definitely not a cult, but I feel like Kamloops was a cult." And that's a big word to use. And I just Googled it. And I'm like, what is a cult defined as? Um, it's a social, Google says a cult is a social group characterized by excessive, unquestioning devotion to a person, an idea, according to the Britannica, a belief system often led by a charismatic leader whose groups typically use manipulative authoritarianism. And he goes on and on and on. Isolating them from outside support. Cults often are religious. So, when I read that, I think, yeah, Kamloops was a cult. And that takes a lot for me to say that. Like you were there. Do you
Yeah.
think it was a cult?
Well, it's interesting that your definition there, because I've heard, to add to that, that often there will be a secret involved. So, for example, Scientology, there's these tiers, or Freemasonry. What makes it cult-like is that they don't tell you the answer when you walk in the door. Whereas with Christianity, it's like Jesus saves is the message, and there's no ta-da moment where. But I suppose that's referring more to Christianity than to um, like different sects. Christianity is not a cult because it already shares with you. There's no secrets.
No, and the door's always open, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can be kind of ostracized for leaving, but you're not cut off in the same way that if you leave Mormonism or Scientology, you literally lose contact with your family and people
Mm-hmm.
get dramatically cut off from any contact. Whereas I feel like with Christianity, it's a bit more easy come, easy go. I mean, not always, but it's not got
Yeah.
that secrecy around it. Pretty much the minute you walk in the door, you're told what the answer is.
Yeah, I don't think Christianity is a cult.
No.
And I've been in lots of church environments that aren't cult-like. Kamloops, though, was different because it had an extremely gifted, powerful leader. What should we call it? Like Mr. Clark.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll just say Mr. Clark. Um, you can't. Charismatic leaders are born, and probably if you followed through their whole life, they would probably be the leader of the gang in school, and they would be the leader that they just have natural God-given or a gift to be able to manipulate people, win an argument, talk people into doing crazy things like let's jump in that cold lake or something. Like, I have a level of that.
Persuasive.
I can persuade my kids to do things that they wouldn't normally do, or I can persuade people but and then stacked on top of that is what would you say? You can layer all these different gifts, and all of a sudden you have like a leader that's like magnetic. You usually any cult, like even if you look at any of the legendary cults, they're a magnetic leader that people were
Mm.
drawn to. If they weren't, then no one would go in the first place.
Yeah.
Like there's something, the moth to a flame. There's a flame that draws you, and then you get too close, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm getting burnt, and it's
Mm.
almost too late. But there's the original drawing
I would
that a
say
person can
we
have.
spent 6 weeks in Kamloops at the feast. So the church was called the feast. And I would say there was that ruthlessness there of uncompromising, unyielding dedication that was expected of people who came along. And if they were half in, half out, they were judged as being, like lukewarm. There was an expectation that you're all in 100%. And there was a very high standard for what they kind of seemed to frame as being dedicated to the cause, and it was really clear what was expected to me.
Yeah.
All of you, like your
Well,
whole
that's what
life.
it says here, and as I'm reading it, like authoritative, coercive tactics to control members' thoughts and behaviors, and that for sure was happening. Like if you were to visit for a week and go again, if anything, really, you would never really feel the full impact of what's going on. You could probably potentially go to Epstein Island for 5 hours back when it was in
Mm,
full throes and think, there's nothing to see here.
mm,
A couple of good-looking waitresses, but yeah, I had a pretty
mm,
good time. But you go there
mm,
for 48 hours, you might have a whole different experience, right?
yeah,
So I think that, Kamloops was what defined, well, maybe we should talk about what got me there and what,
yeah,
like briefly.
yeah.
So I've talked about this a lot, but I was in Toronto airport, Vineyard, massive movement of God, all of people coming from all over the world, quite well known, went through a divorce there, and I was the black sheep. So I was ousted from that church and felt like I was ousted from God's love in a way. Went and lived in the world, partied and all of that stuff, and always had this longing to get back to God, because I thought that's anything other than that, I was going in a bad direction. And so I moved from Toronto to Vancouver Island, where I had family. I lived there for a year, went to a conference there, was on the outskirts, thought that I was just an outcast, really felt like a black sheep, really. And then this kid, Jamie, invited me to Kamloops. He said, hey, you should come out to Kamloops. And it kind of just sat with me. I'm like, oh, yeah, And I just packed my bags a week later and drove on my way all the way up to Kamloops, which is a long way from Vancouver Island, and showed up at Jamie's house. And he was living with Mr. Clark and his wife, Mrs. Clark. And I stepped in. I didn't know what I was just going to visit Jamie. And I didn't really have any other expectation. And I walked into the house, and there was like cranking music, like worship music, Christian music. And this guy sitting in front of the stereo, just like speaking in tongues at the top of his lungs. And everyone was sitting around watching this character.
How many
And
people?
there was probably like 8 people in the house at that time, maybe more. There was always tons of people living in that house.
Mm,
And it was a spectacle. So I just joined in and watched this character. I was like, what the hell did I just come into? Like, it was just, and this was like, 3:00 in the afternoon. And I remember his wife was just kind of sitting there, just kind of staring, and she was quite a cold character, and just kind of walked past me and probably got sick of people showing up at her house. And so that was the beginning of like, I just wasn't prepared for it, and it was wild. Geez, I don't know. I mean, where do you go from there? I mean, I was captivated by this person. He was an extremely charismatic, magnetic, passionate person, and my openness, which was my tractor beam that was being drawn to that, was like I was desperately wanting to get back to God, back to feeling like I was in his camp again. I was the prodigal son, and I wanted to return. And so, I was far away from Toronto. I was far away from anyone that known my past, and so I was just like watching this thing happen and feeling like, holy, this guy is like one of a kind. Like, it was crazy. He was like believing in healing and revival. Now, revival is a word that's been thrown around Christianity for a long time, and still is. And revival is where, I guess you would say, where God comes to earth and signs and wonders start to happen. So people get out of wheelchairs, and mass migration into Christianity happens. I would say that would be revival. It would be like Pentecost in the Bible, when the Holy Spirit came, that kind of thing. And so Nolan would, Mr. Clark, sorry, bleep.
There's just no way.
I don't want to,
Yeah, but we've
dirty
said his
anyone's
name so many times on this podcast.
Okay.
We have.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's too late.
Yeah, was believing in that. And so, yeah, I was like, whoa, who is this guy and what is going on here? And looking back, you can have a lot of other thoughts like, wow, everyone was just watching this one character. This is something unbalanced here. And there was this kind of God syndrome happening, maybe. And so, yeah, I was drawn to that church. I ended up just setting up camp there and living in the house with them. And, and just kind of living in Nolan's house, which was pretty wild. And, it was like he would pray out loud and have it and want everyone else. The thing about him was that he always wanted everyone else to come along for the ride, and was very, very persuasive. So he was always looking around like, who's watching? And I think this is like something that's just, he doesn't even know he's doing, maybe, but it's like constantly, doing something crazy and then looking around to see who is watching, and then persuading people to, like, you have to stay up with me all night and pray. You have to come with me and do such and such. And it was always a crazy, extreme thing that God was telling him to do. And if we didn't do it, then you kind of got the feeling that you were not edgy enough. You weren't really, it was like, you weren't a Navy SEAL yet. You were just kind of like not tough enough and ballsy enough to go do the crazy thing. And sometimes that would be sitting outside in the freezing cold. Sometimes that would be jumping in a cold lake. Sometimes that would be doing something very, very reckless as kind of I think subconsciously what he's doing is like, will you follow me when I do this? That's how far wow, these guys follow me wherever I go. Whatever I tell them to do,
can you imagine the power he would have felt? Whether conscious or unconscious, he must have known what a kick that these guys, I can push these guys really far.
Yeah, and I believe that there was never, I don't think that there was a master plan. I don't think there was like, I think there was a genuine, and still is, because he's still believing the same stuff. There's a genuine love for God. I mean, he was a street fighter, born into gangs and violence, and then had this radical conversion experience. And I think where one of the problem lies is that I think he went to Bible school. He was very, very intelligent. Went to Bible school, and then kind of went straight into ministry. But the thing is, with the kind of churches we were involved in, there was no real checks and balances. It's just like, you've got passion, you've got a gift, go plant a church, fill your boots, and you can do that, right? There's no one stopping you. There's no one stopping a guy who has only built a garden fence from stopping a full-blown construction company. He just goes to put a sticker on his truck and starts. I mean, we're allowed to do that, so he was allowed to start a church. But yeah, I mean, you'd be crazy if you didn't admit that he was an extremely gifted person. He was very intelligent. He was an extremely good debater. He knew he could speak at 100 miles an hour. He knew the Bible off by heart.
Would you say he was a bit of a
preach with passion,
Charlie Kirk type character? Do you think? How articulate. I haven't watched his stuff, but you know how articulate Charlie Kirk, or got a young family, and then he's just, see him in a debate and he's just got his access to vocabulary and arguments is impressive.
100%. You do not want to get into a debate with Nolan. You just don't. You're not going to win. Because coupled with being an extremely gifted debater, and intelligent, there's this other element, which is, I have to win no matter what, because he's very competitive. He later went into cage fighting, which is extremely competitive, beating the shit out of people. And I have my own stories of that being close to that with him, but being beaten up on. So yeah, you that's the bad mix, right? Where you have someone extremely competitive that must win no matter what, cannot admit defeat, cannot say, you know what, you're probably right. It's like, nah, I'm going to hammer it down to your throat until you just surrender. So yeah, yeah, and man, you can spend so much time in all of it, but you know, there's many nights where we stayed up all night and prayed for God to come. And I remember feeling at the time, often feeling at the time, like, I'm so tired, I just want to go to bed. I don't understand what he's on about. I don't feel what he's feeling, but I'm not going to be the one that walks away. And so there was this projection that we were all feeling, was like, don't be the one that walks away.
But
So this is like
folds.
this,
So would
yeah,
he,
this
if you did say
guilty
like,
feeling.
guys, I'm tired, I'm going to bed, would you be kind of judged as being a lightweight?
Oh yeah, yeah, big time. Yeah, I mean, it would be jokingly and laughed at a bit, but there would be a definite feeling of like, I'm gonna miss it. You know, it's like being at a gambling table and saying, one more hand, I think this is the winner. And so
Mm.
it's like, oh, if we stay up until 3, then something might happen.
Mm.
But so many times, and I'd look around and I'd see everyone was just like fatigued, and you know, and it happened all the time. You know, his wife was fatigued from it for sure.
Yeah.
So
What I find interesting is I was really young when I came out, probably, I don't know, 19. But I could see a lot of insecurity in him, very deeply insecure person.
mhm,
Because like his body language, even when I recently just stumbled over a clip of him, when you say about looking around to see who's watching, to me, that's really, really very deeply insecure body language. And what I
yeah,
find interesting about, I mean, there's no doubt he's a narcissist and probably some other stuff too, possibly, well, who knows? Who knows what's going on there? But definitely, I think most people would say that he's probably narcissistic.
mhm,
And what I find interesting about them is that they all have their day where they have their peak moment where they can have influence and a degree of power. And then because narcissists aren't really interested in growth, they're kind of a one-trick pony. So they've got their trick and they always overplay their hand. So I can guarantee if you talk to him now, he's got the same trick. He's using the
mhm,
same card because he only has a small selection of cards in his pack,
mm,
which for a certain moment, like in your 20s and 30s, is impressive to other people in their 20s and 30s or teens
mhm,
who look up to that and go, wow, he knows a lot. But what's interesting is that the people around them gradually start maturing and outgrowing that character. And that's
mhm,
what I saw happening where people connect with you now who have walked away. Everyone in their own moment outgrew him. And he is still probably to this day, he probably has nothing new to add to the conversation than what he was banging on about 25 years ago. Because that's the nature of narcissism, is they're not actually interested in progression and growth and maturity. They're deeply insecure. They figure out what works for them. They find people who it resonates with, and then those people eventually outgrow that person, and all they're left with is a mirror of
mhm,
who they are.
mhm,
um because that, they gradually isolate themselves unknowingly because people just either can't tolerate them or go, you're a child, you're still caught up in all of this nonsense, or this story is getting old, because other people who mature are constantly progressing
yep,
and growing and saying, I got that wrong, and adjusting, for
mhm,
example, when we left Christianity and had that moment of, are we atheists? What's going on here? But now there's like, maybe I didn't get that right. I actually do feel that there's a higher power.
mhm,
There's a revisiting of faith. And to me, that shows that there's progress, and then a willingness to say, yeah, that I was throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There is so
mhm,
much good here. All of those things to me speak to moving on. And
mhm.
that's why whenever, we've thought, oh, would we ever be interested in interviewing him? Well, no, because he's got absolutely nothing new to add to the conversation. I bet you it would be dull as dishwater. because he's not changed.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you're right, because I have tried to follow him, and I can't handle it, because I just feel like, bro, like, you're still, and there's a part of that is like, I understand, like, if you're a fighter, a physical fighter, you have to have this, if you're going to be a Navy SEAL or anything like that, or whatever, you have to have this like blind a focus, right? It's just like nothing will come between me and that goal. Nothing, and it becomes an obsession. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched Everest, and it's the true
Oh, yeah.
story reenactment, and these people's obsession to go to the top of Everest, even when all the information that's coming their way is like, this is a bad idea, do it another day, and they all end up fucking dying up there, because they're just refuse to come to terms with the fact that it's a failed attempt. And I think in his head, I don't know, because I'm not in his head, but it would seem to me that same feeling we had, where, oh, we can't go to bed because what if God comes at 3 a.m. I think that he feels like everything is, I think he feels he's God's chosen. He's chosen by God. He's special.
So he's delusional, right?
Yeah. So I think that, and I think that also, because he's so well versed in the Bible, I think that you can make the Bible support any narrative that you wish, like anything. You can manipulate it. You can pick and choose. And I think this is his dark night of the soul. This is his, like, everyone's walked away. This is what happened to Jesus in the wilderness. Everyone walked away from them. There might only be 2 people watching my reel on Instagram, but that's okay, because
those 2 people are Donald Trump and
yeah. I mean, and I understand that like, I understand that feeling of like, I'm not going to be the one that quits, and you can convince yourself that God is shining on you because everyone else has walked away. But there's also a side that you need to think, hang on a minute, if no one wants to be around me, not that no one does, but what's wrong with me? Where's my part to play in that? I think that's the part that I see lacking. And now I've been away from him for a long, long time, so I don't know, but I hear stuff. And my guess is that, those types of personalities, when the crowd loses interest and starts to walk away, like you're saying, it's like, okay, he's played all his cards, and I've seen that there's like he was cheating the whole time. Those cards up his sleeve. He won't change the card trick. He just finds a new crowd, like you were saying, to do the card trick in front of, and that's what I've kind of watched from afar. Is just move to another place, find another crowd, come in with all my charisma and friendliness, and then slowly start to build a little team, a gang. And I was talking to Todd on this podcast a couple times, who was involved, and he said that to me. He's like, he treated kind of his group in that church in the feast like a gang, like a street gang. And if you leave the gang, you're a snitch, you're a rat, you're out, and you will never be talked to again. You're an outcast. And that's where it becomes cultish, right? Because it was forbidden to talk against him. It was forbidden to do anything against, so we went through, man, I remember this one instance. So I was living in his house, and he was married to his then wife, and I was living in the basement with my then wife, Jen. And while he was away on a weekend, his wife had rented a movie with Robin Williams called Liar. And the movie, I haven't seen it, but I think it's Robin Williams goes to Auschwitz, and he lies to his son about the fact that he's in a prison camp, and makes it into a game so his son will get through it. So he said, this is all, and it's really, I'd love to watch the movie. It's like, this is all a game. Like, here comes the bad guys, and we're going to do this. And his son thought the whole time it was his play, and it got his son through prison camp. Nolan comes back from his weekend away, sees this movie, and keeps her up and the whole house up until 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't believe you would rent a movie with the word liar in it when everything we're standing for is against the devil and the devil is lies. Just like wearing her down to the point where she just surrenders, just like there actually was no argument. It was just
Mm,
pure, you're down on the ground. Like what
mm.
fighter does that? Like once you're down, you're down. Give him a hand, get back up. It's you're down. Now I'm going to beat the shit out of you. Because I don't remember ever hearing a response from his wife.
So
And we
she
were
just
all like,
had to
listen.
listen to this drivel,
Yeah.
to
And
the
probably
monologue.
inside, she was just, get me out of this hell.
Mm.
Probably inside, she was just like, and eventually you start to probably just be so persuaded. You're like, the only way to peace in this house is for me to just surrender
Well, it's
all the time.
conditioning, so she would know not to do that ever again, and probably
Right. Fear.
submission is the quickest way for this to end. So I'll just submit and make my plan to escape very slowly.
Yeah.
Whenever she was right. I mean, I can't even, well, I can because I've been through something similar, but it's hard to believe someone ever gets out of that, because that is Sleeping with the Enemy, that movie where you have to plan for a solid year or
Oh,
more,
yeah.
like she has to
Fakes
learn
her
to
own death.
swim. Yeah, she has to learn to swim without the husband knowing. She
Yeah.
has to take the light bulb out of a light at the end of the dock so that she can go to the end of the dock and jump in the water. And I can't remember the full story, but basically it's a very long plan to leave her captor husband.
Julia Roberts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good movie.
And a number of people that I've shared my story to have said, oh, it's like Sleeping with the Enemy. And you just gradually make your plan and then shuffle closer and closer to the exit.
Yeah. And from what I've heard, secondhand, is that since then he's jumped from relationship to relationship and it's been pretty rough. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of all of that. I'm just two sides to it all. But all I know is his then wife, Heather, I don't think she'll ever recover.
No, you don't.
Ever. You don't recover from that.
No.
And I don't know if I'll ever recover, as far as my scars will never heal over. And I think that's probably a good thing. But I can't walk into a church, and I'm very, triggered by strong leaders, manipulative, slightly not manipulative in a bad way, but just people with passion. Very like, whew, it pricks me,
and not necessarily a bad thing, because it's like this warning, this signal that you're picking up on, this scent.
Right.
It's like, that is, there's a snake pit there.
Yeah. And, I admit to my part in it all, right? Like I was vulnerable. And I think that's most people that are drawn into these things are in a vulnerable time. Like the signal is going out and the people that pick up the signal are the people that need what that person's giving out. Right. And he accepted me. And then all of a sudden I started to rise to be his closest friend, and basically his mentor it's funny because Gabe and I are watching Star Wars right now, from the very, very beginning, the story. And, it was like Anakin and he was my Obi-Wan, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
He would talk about that and I would feel like, and a lot of young guys were very jealous of my position with him because they wanted that close, but I put in the time. And honestly, we had some good laughs and some good times when we were kind of like off the record and weren't at a church conference or something. We had some good, and sometimes I miss those times. He was a fun guy, and we did have a lot of fun, but it,
well, they always do have a quality out. No
sure.
one
Why else would you stay?
And that's the thing, isn't it? That no one's going to be entirely diabolical.
No.
They have the thing that their one trick pony. That trick is
It's a good trick.
A good trick. Yeah, absolutely. And then they overplay their hand, and it sickens people eventually, and they're just disgusted with it. But that's why they constantly need fresh people who get the trick.
Yeah, eventually most self respecting people eventually have enough of being told what to do. And eventually they fight. But most people I know that left that scenario had to slither away. Had to like just fade out. And the shrapnel from the Kamloops feast experience is like the blast radius is huge.
Mm.
And there's people with all kinds of disillusionment and don't know if God exists and don't know what that was, and they're deeply damaged and hurt. And I think that, and I said this to him, like I bumped into him at a funeral, years later, and he cornered me in the men's bathroom, white spot, and basically wanted me to admit that it was good times, and I just wouldn't.
That's so funny
And
that he needs that. That shows his insecurity.
yeah, he's like, come on, you got to
Tell
admit
me it was good. Tell me it was
you
good.
got to admit it was fun. Like, yeah, we made a few mistakes, ha ha ha. And I said no. I said, the net outcome of that whole experience was more negative than positive. And I said the trail of dead that was left behind, to me, speaks much louder than any of the good times. So
Which,
no,
for his guilt, which he will at moments, he wouldn't have asked you to affirm that to him if he wasn't holding on to some guilt about the damage he's done.
mm,
And if you had said, you're right, it was good times, it would have eased that guilt a bit, but you didn't. So he wasn't put out of his misery, and there must be somewhere in him a degree of misery over, else he wouldn't be asking for that. And every time you've spoken to him over the years, he's tried to get that from you. That
yeah,
kind of, he's looking for your reassurance that the good times outweigh the bad, and you won't give it to him. And that's probably for him like this unresolved floaty thing that, God damn it, he won't give me the thing that I need.
yeah,
Which
yeah,
shows how powerless he is, even though he's probably not conscious of it. He's just acting out of an uncomfortable feeling, but not probably got enough self-reflection to go,
yeah,
what I need to, like, let me look into that, and work this through myself. He's looking outwardly for someone to throw him a bone and tell him it was all okay. And probably no one's doing that. And what I see with narcissists and those difficult types is that the older they get, they're because it's so ego based, their ego starts to get into crisis because the sun is setting on their influence, and now they'll be floundering because the one thing that they built their identity from, it isn't really working anymore because they're a has-been, and their ego starts to unravel and collapse because they can't fall back on the tricks that have worked up until that point, because older people have utterly outgrown them and are not going to be, okay, maybe he's got some teenagers that might look up to him, maybe not, maybe they're unimpressed too, maybe he's just too old, who knows. But the closer to death that a narcissist gets, the more ugly it gets, because they cannot handle not being the star.
mm,
It's just awful because they're scrambling.
mm.
It's the same as the guy that, is the player, and then
Yeah, he's the
he's not
50-year-old at the bar.
right, and then he's not. Oh, all of a sudden women are like, oh, you're a perv, you're old enough to be my dad or whatever. And it's like, what? All of those tricks for so many years, and finally the sun has set on that charmer or whatever that thing was, and now these younger women will be like, you're literally old enough to be my dad, I think you're creepy.
Yeah, you got to pivot and go to the old people's home at that point.
Shoot, what do you do then? Yeah.
Pick
So
up a
what?
granny.
But that shows me, because we all develop our egos in the area that we get most rewarded. And so all of us do it. It's not like I'm saying he's different from anyone else. But then there comes an age as you head towards like middle age where it's like everything in that first half of life that was rewarded is no longer being rewarded. And then it becomes this, well, now what do I do? Because for a woman, it's my youth is fading. And for women, that's our one power card that men don't have. Like, typically men get more respect the older they get in society. Like, oh, he's got grey hair, he must know a lot. For women, we just become invisible because a power card is a woman's youth and her beauty. And as a woman looks elderly, society doesn't want to hear what she's got to say, whereas often men get more revered. He's the wise old man now. And I think that if you've been rewarded for being youthful and, as a woman, that starts to fade, and it's an identity crisis, because it's none of that's being rewarded, and men get a lot longer than women do. When
Interesting.
women have their power, it's more powerful than men in some ways, because
Oh, yeah.
but when they lose it, it's gone.
Yeah.
The youth power card slips through a woman's fingers, and it's just like, that's that.
Yeah.
And men, I think, actually ascend. If you've got a man who's a CEO of a company and he's in his late 50s, and he's worked his way up and he's now the employer and all of this adoration, and he's still ascending. And it's just, so men get a different thing where they, I guess, they get a different crisis. But I see it as, what rewards you in the first half of your life stops rewarding you later. And
Yeah.
everyone has to go for a recalibration time where they go, what is my worth? It's really, really a difficult transition. And then maybe, certainly Mum says she eventually you kind of embrace being invisible. I guess you just kind of go, well, I'm just going to get on with my life and I don't care.
Yeah.
You stop caring maybe. But there's that in-between time where it's slipping through your fingers and you're going, oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you've got this kind of interesting, when you have, like, with Nolan specifically, when you have like this intimate relationship with God, what your version of God, that's like a third player. So you're not, I think, yeah, like, I don't know if he's, if you can't get humans adoration anymore, then you'll just focus on getting God's adoration. And if you're so convinced that God is completely, you're his golden child, then that charges the batteries too, of believing that I'm special. That I have and I think it's whatever they'll subconsciously figure out, whatever it takes to charge my batteries, to stroke my ego, to make me believe that I am, because coming to terms with the fact that you're not necessarily special, that's tough, especially I'm not a woman, but for a man who's longs to be special, longs to have, put his mark on the world. When you realize that maybe I'm just special to my kids and that's it, to like 3 or 4 people in my life, when you've had with Nolan, he's had the adoration of arena, like smaller, like thousands and thousands of people, been speaking, and they've all, that he could tell them to go poop on the floor and then start eating it, and they'd probably do it. Like, I mean, that much control over human beings. And I've seen that with public speaking. So yeah, it's hard to, who knows the demons he's fighting. But all I know is at that time, it was a crazy time. We felt like we were his disciples. I think we felt like he was God's anointed. That God was going to come, and there was going to be this massive, he preached to all of us, and and on a larger scale, that we were all going to be, well, he was for sure going to be martyred by the time he was, I think, 28.
And how old is he now?
50, 55, 56 probably.
And like we said before, it might have been better if that had happened.
Yeah, a call to martyrdom, which is interesting, eh? Like they would
Fill your
say
boots,
that,
mate,
from the pulpit,
yeah,
which is kind of like a suicide wish. Like, yes, who wants to be called to martyrdom? And people put their hands up and run to the front. Yeah, I want to be stoned to death. Thank you very much. Hey, Mum, guess what I learned today? I'm going to be a martyr. You are, dear? Yeah, I'm going to put it on the fridge. I'm vision planning.
Yeah.
How would you like to die,
Goals.
dear? Well, I don't know. You poke my eyes out with hot pokers. Okay.
Tortured to death was like the
put that
utmost
on the fridge.
honor.
Yeah. Oh, it was just wild.
They were glorifying, I don't know, it was like a romanticism about death and honor.
And being a Christian, and, church gets pretty damn stale. So when I moved there, I remember calling Mom, and I was like, this is like the apostles. Like, I can't explain it, Mom. I'm like, this is like God's alive. Like, it felt alive, and it was wild and passionate. And we were all young and full of energy. And, it was pretty crazy, and people would come and move there from all over the place. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, it was kind of like Toronto was. It drew
Mm.
people, but it was more of a grunge move, where Toronto was a clean pop
This
move.
was
This was like
street stuff.
this was an edgy grunge, brow piercings and tattoos.
Dye your hair every week.
No one had any money.
Break
Didn't need
dancing on
money.
the streets. Yeah.
Yeah, but kind of very confusing, right? Because in the middle of that was this just extreme control, like no part of, there was no give, swearing or listening
I
to
remember you
worldly
saying
music.
you'd go to a movie and make a pact, like they would start swearing in the movie, and if they swear one more time, we're all leaving, and you guys would just walk out of the cinema. If it got too,
Yeah. It was a purity. It
yeah,
was purity big time, I mean, the whole Spice Girls of me and Jen. We had a
yeah. So you
CD.
couldn't listen to Spice Girls.
No, we got reprimanded massively for Jen for I didn't have Spice Girls. I didn't like them, but Jen did. And I think it was probably the reason my marriage didn't survive. And I don't blame as my own fault for being sucked into it, right? And I see that part, and I own that part.
Yeah.
Like, what was it in me that allowed myself to get drawn into that and was attracted to that and sucked in? And I totally own that. But I think that if we hadn't have gone through that, I would have probably still been married to Jen.
Yeah. Very
But
destructive.
the ace card that Nolan had with me, one of the ace cards he had with me, is that I had gone through a divorce, which was like the cardinal sin in our Christian upbringing, right? Divorce was like right up there. And I'd gone through the divorce with Allison and really felt shame. And I had bumped into Jen again after not being with her for years. Like, we split up and we bumped into each other in Calgary at an outreach thing we were doing. And we had this one night, and Nolan woke me up in the night, and we were sleeping in the same room. And I was having this turmoil about, was I allowed to love someone else? Nolan looked at me, and his, like, when he was filled with the Spirit, it would always be like shaking and heavy breathing and all kinds of, like, when the Spirit's on him. And he pointed at me and said, basically, God has allowed me to allow you the freedom. So this shame is lifted. Right. And I remember just went from crying into laughing. Felt like a huge weight off my shoulders. And it's pretty incredible that I had placed so much power in this person that a couple of words from him was as good as God saying to me personally, you don't need to walk in shame anymore. You're free to go love Jen. And
he held all the cards to that. Or rather, you had given him that power over you.
Yeah, and I think I don't think it's I think subconsciously he knew, like, the calculations that go on behind the scenes that you don't even know what's happening is like, I've got him, because now he owes me, kind of thing. Like, and
but this is always the hard part: is how much awareness do these people have about the level of control they have over other people? Like you say, he didn't have a plan, but I think the hard part is when you come out of it is thinking, did he sit in bed at night moving the chess pieces around the board? Because he was a highly intelligent person. And I think one of the hardest things when you escape someone like that, as I have done too, is people will say to me, was this planned? Is he aware? How conscious is this behavior? Because if it is conscious, then it's psychopathic, essentially, because you're becoming a dictator in people's lives, and you understand the level of control you have, and you're deliberately manipulating them for your own pleasure, in a way, just as sport. Whereas someone who's really unaware is just living out of an emotional throw up. They're just a highly emotional person, reactive and impulsive. Like, let's go here. I've got this feeling like we should jump off this cliff right now. And, he's probably like also got ADHD. So he's got that impulsiveness. And it could be that he's just a highly emotional person as well. And sometimes I want to give these people the benefit of the doubt and go, they're emotional catastrophes. They live out of an emotional center that's unregulated. And often when they say something out of impulse, it's not because they've got a plan. It's just because they're a highly addictive, impulsive person. And then you just get drawn in because they're so convinced. They drink their own Kool-Aid, they eat their own shit, and they're all in with themselves. And that's a really mesmerizing, magnetizing. When you are listening to someone who actually believes themselves, there's something so disarming about it, because you think they really believe this 100%. They have bought in. Eventually you realize they've bought into their own bullshit, but at the time you think they bought into a divine insight or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a personality like Conor McGregor, right? You know Conor McGregor?
Yeah.
I mean, he is same type of personality
Yeah.
as Nolan, for sure. It just there's a side to that which got him to be the world champion in cage fighting. But there's a side to it when you look at it now. It's like, bro, you never doubt yourself, which is great, but you also never doubt yourself. And
now he's a has-been, and he's still strutting around like he owns the place, and people are like, dude, your day is done.
Yeah, I was still the best, but I think that there's never. Yeah, I mean, I can only speculate because I'm not around Nolan anymore. But I see, it's the tricks haven't changed. The environment's just changed. I mean, I remember
they don't
going
know how
to
to read the room. That's the thing, is they don't know that the environment's changed. I don't think.
No, I mean,
Conor McGregor with that strut, you'd think he'd be doing interviews where he's like, yeah, I've just accepted the fact that I had a good run. I don't know where he's at now, but he strikes me as someone who's still going to strut around and not read the room very well.
Yeah. I mean, that everything is someone else's problem. I'm still
great. They just misunderstand me.
Yeah, I mean, I went away on a little tour. I was recording a song, and I came back recording some music. And it was the interesting thing for me, like where I started to break away was this. I was always like, if I look at myself in Kamloops retrospectively and what was going on in my heart, I had so many reservations all the time. Like, I was like, just like in my head, I was like, just shut up, man. Like, just shut up. Like,
Really?
I cannot stand hearing you talk anymore. God forbid you say that against. And so, but I was always just like, but if I just wait one more day. So there's always this pot of gold that you were like, it's like, I don't know if you've ever been hiking and you're like, I've been hiking before by myself, and I'm like, I'm just going to go to that mountain peak. And I get to there and I'm like, I wonder what's over that next one. And you just keep on going and going. Before you know it, it's too dark to get home. And it was like, that was the feeling. I was like, there was so much doubt because he would just, so what happened with me, like, I've always had a heart for I've never loved the church, like church services and all of that. What I've really always loved, just naturally a thing in me, was to go out and feed homeless people, be with down and outs. In Toronto, that's what I did. The church would start. I would, with Allison, we'd go get food from a local restaurant and go feed the homeless people. So I was always drawn to kind of like doing work out there, not being in the church and just learning more and more about the same old shit. And so in Kamloops, it was no different. I started, hanging out with homeless people and down on the streets, because they were all saying God's going to win Kamloops. Like, Kamloops is going to be the center of revival, and they would pray all night. Whereas in my head, I didn't judge them for doing that. In my head, I'm like, well, let's just go down there and start doing it. And I wasn't like, I'm not doing what you're doing. That's just what drew me. And so I started walking into this coffee shop with me and Jamie, and we went every day and all the time. And I knew every hooker. I knew every drug dealer. I knew every gang member. I was driving to people picking up in jail, going to court cases. I mean, we found dead people. Like, it was crazy. And Nolan was involved in none of this. But every so often, he would come down to this coffee shop and see this thing that was happening. Like, people would call me like Angel Gabriel or something, because I was this like beacon of hope. But I I'm not that person that wants to speak louder and louder. Like Nolan, when he was in a room, he would speak louder and louder until everyone was listening to him. His volume would subconsciously go up and up and up. And I don't even know if he's doing this. And he would look around all the time, and his volume would go up until people were starting to look at him.
Dominance.
I'm not like,
yeah.
I'm not like that. I genuinely loved what I was doing, and I wasn't doing it for any. I just thought this is where I felt God was. You know, was just acts of kindness, just work, just not preaching to them about the gospel or nothing, just helping them out. You know, you need to move an apartment, let's do that. You want to go to the court, you know, very practical. And so he would come down every now and then and see that there was something happening here. And I would bring van loads of these guys to church, and they were all freaking high. Like, I remember Heather got up to do a song, and she was playing a piano, and she's like, "Touch me, Lord." And this guy's like, "I'd like to touch you." Like, loud as can be. And I must have brought like 20 of these street bums to church every Sunday. Because I'm like, all right, you want?
Yeah.
And it would really throw things off, because they were like, I didn't do it out of any intention. I thought, this is it. Like, and they were like, oh my God, we can't control this craziness. But as soon as he would come into something, he would want to steal the glory for it. And I didn't care too much, but I noticed subconsciously, I'm like, oh, you don't like the fact that I built something. And
he was threatened.
Yeah, he was threatened. So he would want to, like, and then he would preach in church. We're on the streets. We're doing this. We're doing all this. It wasn't any, look what Jobie's doing, right? And I didn't, you know, I remember just having a little check in my heart. Like, oh, interesting. And then I moved from that into being really inspired by this intercessor night and day prayer, like praying, you know, and something really, it was Mike Bickle who got me into it. And now he's being done for
sexual abuse.
Of course. So I started, you know, we listened to all these tapes and went to all these conferences. So I'm like, me and my friend Chris, we were like, let's just start a house. Let's just wake up at 5 a.m. every single morning and pray for 3 hours every day. Let's just do it. Because they were talking about it. I was a doer. So I started it, and it was just me and him. And I would get out and drive Jen crazy. 5 a.m. I would drive to church, turn the music on, and we would pray for 3 hours. And we did it every single morning for like a year or two. And people would start to come. There'd be like 12, 13. I remember Nolan showing up one morning, and he just turned it all into a comedy thing. He was like completely turned, like it was this like serious type of like spiritual warfare, we called it. And he didn't like that I was leading it. And so he made it about him. And so he turned it into this, God's fun, and it's all fun. And like he would start joking about things and this and completely hijacking the whole event. And then there was another time when I started going to do all the First Nation stuff. So it was like, you know, we traveled across, Jen and I, because Jen was half Native. And I went to all these reservations and like, I mean, really down and out reservations where, you know, no running water, suicides every week. And I was just so into it and just loving these people. And they were in the middle of nowhere. And I brought Nolan out there one time. I was like, oh, this would be good. And he just, he completely completely kind of sabotaged all the work I had done. Instead of the First Nations people, some of the dudes that I was starting to build relationship with, the tough guys, he would start to challenge them to fight. And just make it all about like, I'm going to go out and hang out with kids. No, I think we should just hang in here and watch a movie. Like it was all just hijacking it like over and over again. He just could not handle. And I think Heather, his wife, was the same way too. Just couldn't handle anyone else getting glory or, you know, it's just, it's fear, right? It's fear that they're
losing control of things when people act on their own initiative, and it's deeply threatening. So it's huge insecurity on their part that, oh, we're losing control. Shoot, they're acting independently.
One hand you're preaching freedom. It's a feast. The church was called the feast. It's a feast for all. Everyone come, just eat much you want, but don't grab the microphone.
But it's a dictatorship.
Yeah, it's completely opposite. It's like, don't start anything. Don't push in any. You can. Make sure it all comes back to me being don't forget who's boss here.
That's the nature.
It's like a mob leader.
And it's also the nature of those disorders where they eventually make your world as small as possible. So they want the trophy, and they'll go after the highest, most talented musicians and, the people with the most gifting, because they want to surround themselves with the trophy. It's no different than the P. Diddy story on Netflix, where he
Oh man,
wanted
that triggered me so much.
Notorious Big. He wanted Tupac, and then he had to kill them because they're too threatening, and how he didn't pay his musicians, and they ended up being totally broke and begging him. And oh
But
my
because he was a
goodness.
brand name, the musicians would do everything for free.
Yeah.
Be like, "You're going to pay me soon," but still keep on doing it because hey, it's P Daddy,
Yeah.
and
It's
yeah,
the
it
same, like
reminded me
you
so
say,
much of that
they're all
character.
made in the same factory, these people. And that really resonated with me, is in varying degrees. You've got your extreme, like P. Diddy, who's actually responsible for deaths and
Mm-hmm.
murders. And
Mm-hmm.
then you water it down. But essentially, these cookies are all made in the same factory. They're
Yeah.
deeply insecure people who get threatened by other people's talent. But at the same time, the torment for them is they need to surround themselves with talented people because they want the trophy. And it's just a real mashup. So I think they're just running around trying to frantically put out fires that have independently started without their consent, because people are just unruly and do what they want to do. And they must have felt like quite highly anxious that they've gathered this mob, and now this mob are randomly acting independently, and it makes them as a person feel unhinged. But they created it because they wanted the best people. It's
Yeah, it
really
just always
strange.
had to be like it always has to be. I mean, your ex is the same. It's the
Mm.
same factory,
Yeah, absolutely.
production line, right? But it
Mm.
was yeah, it always has to be the glory. Always the spotlight. If it starts to move away from them, it has to get back, and the only way to get that back is by doing something sensational. So if
Mm.
everyone's crying, I'm going to make everyone laugh. If
Mm.
everyone's laughing, I'm going to make everyone cry. If
Yeah.
everyone's jumping up and down, I'm going to make everyone sit. And that's what he would do. He would
Mm.
be like, no, 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 we're doing this now. And then watch who follows.
Yeah.
Ah, they're still following me.
Yeah.
Now they're sitting. Everyone
Mm.
stand.
Yeah.
Oh, they're all following me. And when they stop, so I had all of these checks, every now and then. And I was always trying to break away from under his shadow because I just felt I could see this happening. But so I would just do my own thing in a way, like go out to the reservations, and that's where I felt like my wings were spread. You know. And then Dad died, and I moved back to England for a year. And Jen and I were like on the rocks, like she wanted to move back to Canada, because I was a reflection of Nolan, so I
Mm.
was very, he believed, and so the last kind of big push before I got out from under that whole thing was like, women need to be completely subservient. They need to give you as much sex as you need
Mm.
whenever you need it. They
Mm.
should not speak up. So it's very,
Male
what do you call
dominance.
that? Yeah, just full male dominance, female submission. And Jen did not take well to that.
Good luck with that.
I remember one time she just threw a pie at me. And so we moved to England, and I was pushing this, right?
Mm.
Like,
And it was
I remember saying, like, do what I say,
and she was like it was like herding cats. She was not she was not gonna be
No,
subdued. No, no.
no. And she was a rebellious girl.
Mm.
And she kept saying to me, like, you got to see that this isn't healthy. Like,
Mm.
something's not healthy about this. And I refused to believe it because, what we're told is standing up against God's anointed person is standing up against God because he's
Mm.
my spokesperson.
And
So
you'll be
you go against
smite.
him, you go
They'll
against
smite
me.
you.
Well, yeah, not necessarily. You'll lose. The ace card that they had with us was like, you'll lose the inheritance. It's like It's like your father saying to you, $2 million is coming to you, but only if you work for my company, if you do
Mm.
this, if you drive a red car, you're gonna keep.
Mm.
That's a huge carrot. And so the
Mm.
carrot was, if you still want to be my number one, if you still want to be that person that everyone's envying to be. I mean, Nolan would actually say to me, do you know how many people want the position you have?
So manipulative.
Yeah.
I mean, I had that in my marriage. Do you know how many women want to be with me? And,
Oh.
and they're banging at the door, and I would then think, wow, I must be really lucky, because I'm being
Yeah.
told I'm really lucky, not because I feel like I'm lucky.
Right.
And that's this thing where I've said it to myself so often recently. I heard this guy say, don't ask yourself how you feel about this person. Ask yourself, how does this person make me feel? And there's such a huge difference.
Right.
So how you feel about Nolan is, wow, charismatic guy, magnetic, blah, blah, blah. How does Nolan make you feel? Like a piece of shit, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer to that would be, but it's a very disarming question to ask yourself. Don't ask yourself how you feel about this person. Ask yourself how this person makes you feel. And you'll get
Yeah.
a way more honest,
I think it
unguarded
I
response.
think it felt like a badly made bomb being around Nolan. You didn't quite know if it was gonna go off.
So he was an
You're
unpredictable
you were
personality.
always yeah, it was like always a little bit on edge.
So he couldn't regulate himself. He was unpredictable, emotionally unstable then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time. Like
Yeah.
and very erratic. You know, it was all one thing.
I think what's interesting is what you experience is identical to what you can experience in a relationship one-on-one, like a marriage, like what I've come from. And what I've realized is you can agonize over, what did I do wrong? What part did I have to play? And I think that's an important part of it. But there's another part, which is this was them. Good luck when you meet someone like that, a highly manipulative, magnetic, controlling person, and they have a laser focus on you and
Yeah.
recruiting you. You know, that is, especially as a young person, very, very hard to 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 kind of have the wherewithal to not be drawn in by that.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
luck.
Good luck. And especially when they have something you want,
Mm,
you know, which is like what I wanted was to be accepted again by God. And he became the doorway to that.
mm.
Mm. Yeah.
I just think it's a two-part. It's so important to not blame entirely and to say, what was my part to play? So, okay, I was an empath. I was an enabler. I wasn't
Yeah.
assertive. I chose cognitive dissonance. I ignored the red flags. There's all of that you have to go through. And then there's the other part, which was, this was them. And they had an agenda to own me in some way. And, those types of personalities are extremely hard to escape. It's like, sometimes I think, if you had been captured by a psychopath and you realize you're now in a basement, no one knows where you are and the door's locked, how much of that is your fault? Because good luck if a psychopath has got laser focus on capturing you and putting you somewhere where you can't escape. How much of that was you to blame, and how much was it very unfortunate that they decided you were their next victim? And I think, people who give accounts of Ted Bundy would say, he stopped the car, I hesitated to get in. There's usually a moment where people go, the
Pause.
ones that escape will say, I thought, I didn't know, but then you did need to please, that need to be
Yeah.
socially, like, we don't just run. That's the probably, like I've said before, when I get something off Marketplace and I go to an apartment and I suddenly realize no one knows where I am and I'm now in some random apartment somewhere, and I think, shit, I shouldn't have done this. So
Yeah.
that's my part to play, is not being cautious enough. But
Yeah.
if most people are good, most people are well-meaning. But if you find yourself in the hands of someone who has like a bad intention, and they're also highly manipulative and clever, that's
And
sometimes no one's fault.
immature emotions, right? Like I had a situation happen in my house yesterday where I was grateful for my emotions of maturing. You know, Amelia had talked about wanting a CD player. Remember we talked about this?
Mm,
She was like, "Oh, it'd be nice," but she said it in a kind of whimsical way,
mm,
and she's very particular about her room having space and not being too cluttered. So then she was away at a dance competition. I went on Marketplace, found a CD player, went and picked it up, brought it home, set it up, got some CDs from my old tickle trunk, what a box, put them in there, and covered it in a little blanket as a surprise. And then when she came home, I was just like lingering around waiting for her to see it. She's like, "Oh, Daddy." But she had been pretty stressed out all weekend with her dance competition and was really just in a pretty overwhelmed state. And I went downstairs, came back upstairs again, and the CD player and everything that I bought her was sitting outside the bedroom door. So she'd rejected it. And I was really hurt. And I went to bed and I had a hard time falling asleep. So I'm like, woof, that was harsh. But I think the immature emotions would and wanted to come out and say, "Oh, nice. Buy a CD player," and you just put it out. And that's the kind of, as a 53-year-old, the emotion, that's what wanted to come out. That would have felt great. I could make her feel like shit right now.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it. I said to her, I was brushing my teeth. I said, "Oh, I see you brought the CD player out. That's cute." That's what I said. And then I went to bed. And then the next day I went in and I sat down with her. I said, "Amelia, I know if you don't want the CD player, just tell me, because I do not want you having it if you don't want it. But what you did, even though I know you're overwhelming, was hurtful. And if someone buys something for you, just be careful. I really admire that you spoke your truth. Like the admirable thing about Amelia is she will say what she's feeling. I don't feel, and so I really want to nurture that. But all I want to say is, like, Nolan exercised immature emotions all the time. Well, yeah, like kind of like I'm gonna stay up all night and pray. Who's with me? Yeah, we're all going to bed. Instead of being like, so if you really had God's conviction on your heart that you were going to stay up all night and pray, you wouldn't need anyone to come with you. And then all of a sudden it was laying on the guilt, and so like, "Oh yeah, you're not going to come. Well, you're just God's not," in a jokey kind of, yeah. And so there's this kind of like immaturity. Man, I remember one time just before I left Kamloops, we went to the movies just to watch some movie, me and Nolan, and someone behind us was like, I think they were just like having a bag of chips or something. It was quite loud. And he leans back and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, "Oh my fucking God, here we go." And he's like, "Can you keep it down?" And they were like, "It's all right, bro. We're just eating." Like something like that. I'm like, "Oh my God."
It's all going off now.
This is not going to go well. And they kept eating. "Hey, can you keep it down?" And then Nolan stands up, turns around, talks to them in the middle of the movie. And I just wanted to just go to another spot in the movie theater and finish watching the movie. And it was the whole movie was it was this big standoff. "Sit the fuck down, brother." Like,
such a child.
And then after the movie, I'm just like beelining it for my car. Let's go home. He sits and lingers in the foyer and waits for these people to come out.
To intimidate them.
Yeah, to basically, it cannot
let it
let it lie.
And he's the pastor of a church. So if they knew, "Hey, I knew the pastor of that church and you're behaving like a complete asshole."
But in his head, he's like, "I'm being true to myself. I'm not the pussy that just, I'm gonna," I remember when we moved to Vancouver, we were driving to a restaurant and this guy cut me off. And I was like, like this. And he cut me off. And then the traffic will stop. Nolan gets out of the truck, goes around to his car and like says something to him. The guy gets out of his car. Nolan throws him like 3 or 4 fake punches, like poof, poof, like this, and then a high kick, like a round kick, because he's a cage fighter, right? And just misses the guy's head. And it's in Vancouver, like fucking traffic all around. And I'm sitting in the truck with my kids and Jen.
Shame on you, mate. Like,
and watching this, I'm like, and the guy starts calling the cops. Yeah. And then we're at the restaurant and he's like looking at me like, "You think I probably went a bit too far, don't you?" And I'm like, and at this point I was out of the church, but he was trying to patch it up. So this was this kind of shit that would happen all the time.
But by that time you're out and you're going, "You're just a dick. What a fucking idiot." Like a man, he's high in aggression and low in, high in disagreeableness, high in aggression. It's like the worst, and probably low in conscientiousness at the same time, like, or just the worst clusterfuck of at that point. Yeah. You should not be leading a church, man. I mean, he should be just on the streets.
Yeah, I mean, I went away to record a song, came home, found out that him and my then wife had been going out for coffees. My then
Yeah, he's
wife,
romancing her.
yeah, my wife told me, yeah, sorry, it felt like things got a bit uncomfortable between the two of us, and I'm sorry. Nolan comes over and just looks at me and laughs and says, yeah, bro, it probably doesn't look so good, but it was a demonic. The devil was trying to get in there. Nothing to do with me. So I think the whole time, all anyone really wanted who came out of that, if I was to talk to anyone, it's like, what do you really want? I think what we wanted was a legitimate sorry.
Mm,
But no one's going to say sorry if they don't believe what they did was wrong. And I
no.
still don't think he believes anything he did, for the most part, was wrong. And so that's what's just like drop the mic and walk away, you know. So I went to England, just to wrap up how I got out of it. I went to England, dad died, marriage was on the rocks. Jen was like, you know, basically screaming at me, you have to look at, you're married to Nolan, you're not married to me anymore. Basically, you have, this is unhealthy. And I refused to look at it. And it took me 4 months to finally look at it. And it just took this humility in me to say, and then, like we spoke before, like it was like seeing the Matrix. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And Jen and I got really close because all of a sudden I was disarmed and realized, you're right, I was wrong. And then we moved back a year later to Kamloops. And interesting, we don't have any contact because there's no cell phones. So there's no texting. So that everything was dead. And I remember on the plane, Jen had bought this cute little mini skirt. And she's like, I'm really nervous to wearing this. And I'm like, you wear it. And I was like, so the spell had broken for me and I had no fear anymore. And I was like, you wear it. And so she wore it. And Heather just stared at her like she was like a hooker.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, Nolan picked up very quickly that the power was gone.
Yeah.
And it drove him crazy. And I went to a housewarming party and took a couple beers because I've been in England for a year. And we drink. And he's like, phones me up and is like, I cannot believe that someone on my inner circle would do what you just did. Literally 2 beers at a house party. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not in your inner circle. Like I was in England for a year. Like I'm moving to Vancouver to pursue music. And he was like absolutely furious. And I told him to fuck off. And I don't know if many people have actually said that to his face and lived. Well, I didn't say it to his face, it was on the phone. But I think at that moment he realized it's, yeah.
We're done here. He'd lost his grip.
He's lost his grip. And so then preaching from the pulpit, he'd be like, people are leaving Kamloops and they're leaving the blessing. Like I was standing right there at the back of the church.
Yeah.
And they're leaving. But what happened very quickly was that someone took my spot. And I know who it was, and he wanted it really badly. And he is a wreck now, too.
Wow,
oh, yeah, he's a real mess. And there's been lots more after that. But yeah, someone quickly, so...
You weren't indispensable because they're transactional people, so...
Well, that's the way...
Yeah.
Next. Your ex is the same way, right? It's like, move on to the next. And so there's another contender. And so, yeah, once he realized that I was not able to, the fish was off the hook, then I'll take the next one. And and there was a line waiting.
Yeah. And then you get to a point where initially what I think the illusion is, oh no, I'm going to miss out. Because they've created this magnetic field, you have to get to a point where you're like, I don't give a shit. I have no curiosity. You break that chemical addiction, which is what happened in England, is that fascination with Nolan, that because there's this mystique that they create, that you become that dopamine of their approval, and all of this is highly addictive. And then you have physical distance. And that's why they say the only way you can win with a narcissist is no contact, is because you have to break the chemical addiction. And then you just don't give a shit what they're doing. There's no curiosity about their life. You're just like, fill your boots, mate. Anyway, like, I do not care. And that is the amazing freedom. The best way to win with those types is just to go off and have a great life and don't think about them anymore. And don't give them bandwidth in your head. Just I haven't thought about them for months, because their illusion, power is in your mind.
Yeah. And it literally feels like an illusion is broken. It's like they're just a human.
Yeah.
Like, and every movie we've watched, like, Yellow Brick Road and Wizard of Oz and Matrix and all of that, once you see it,
Mm.
you're like, "Oh,
Yeah, you can't unsee what
he's
you
not
see.
God's chosen
Yeah.
at all."
Yeah. And even if they
You
were, you're just like, "Great.
I don't
I
care.
wish you all the best. I wish you well."
Yeah,
And you can. And that's why I think when you said at the beginning, I don't, wish anyone ill, is because you get to a place where you don't want to have revenge. I think if anything, you'd want to save anyone else from being hurt, but actually there's really nothing you can do about
yeah,
what their power of influence, whatever. I wish him well. And I don't mean
yeah,
him ill, because this person is really got a very fragile ego and they're not well. And once you
totally.
see that, it's like, this is not a well person. And I hope that they heal themselves somehow.
Yeah, and there's no part of me that wants to heal anything between me and him.
No, because he's got nothing to offer you
I
anyway.
tried it. I tried it, because I was doing work on myself, and I realized maybe I've got some bitterness. I reached out a year or 2 ago, 2 years ago, so a lot of time had passed, and I was like, "Hey, can we jump on a call?" And we jumped on a call, and I said, "Yeah, I just wanna make sure, just, like, no, I got no axe to like, it's just, like,
Mm,
I'm not looking for anything, I'm just saying, hope you're well.
mm.
Hope it all goes well for you." And at the end, he started saying, "Hey, if you wanna come back to Jesus," and I remember just holding the phone out like this and getting quiet, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, you haven't changed at all. You're still trying to fucking preach at me
Yeah.
and make me believe that you're the way." He's like, "If you wanna come to Jesus, I can reach out to me. I can h I'm more than willing to help that journey." So again, it's like, and I hung up the phone, I'm like, "Yeah, it's
We're
done
done.
forever. We're done forever."
Because I
And
think that speaks to the fact that there's no point reconciling with that type of personality, because there's no progress that can be had. You put it to bed, you move on, and it's like they've got nothing new to offer. They're a one-trick pony, and reconciliation isn't the same as it would be with someone who's matured, who would say, "I am so sorry," like, or "Oh, I'm into this now," and they're pursuing new things.
mm.
Just nothing, because
No, I
they're
mean,
stuck.
yeah, they are stuck, and I think my perception, and I don't know what you're doing, buddy, out there, but my perception is he constantly wants to relive the past and remember and dig it up and glaze it over with it was a net good, and the thought, and so it just cannot let go of that.
Well,
It's
the hard
constantly
part,
it's kind of like singing your hit song
yeah, that was the
in your
golden
80s.
era.
Yeah, it's like, bro, no one cares. Like, no one, just don't sing anymore.
And I think the hard part for them is probably reconciling the fact that that was his personal golden era. How come it wasn't everyone else's? And why do they find fault with that golden era? Because it was so good for him. And
And
so
why
all
didn't
of
I get
this
yeah.
debris and the fallout and the hurt for him is just like, can't we make this good? Because it was so good for me. Because they're so self-centered. I mean, he can't see past his own nose. It's just like a self-centric person who's completely
Mhm,
absorbed, and then can't understand why anyone would have a negative fallout from that. Because for him, of course, like, he had a captive audience.
mhm.
He'd love to revisit that moment that he was in his heyday.
Yeah. Wasn't it good? Don't you remember? Yeah, I mean, I think only hard thing for me is when I hear third hand or see, that there's still people that I can see it in their eyes. There's this like wowness.
Mm,
'Cause he's still him and he's still got his card trick.
mm,
And I can still so it's a bit of a bummer for me when I see that, there's other people that are gonna get hurt by this. I mean, he
yeah.
might have tempered it down a little bit,
Mm,
who knows? But, yeah, I mean, so I guess was that a cult? I think it was.
mm.
It was a cult. It was just not the cult it wasn't a sex cult. It wasn't
That would have been more fun.
a suicide cult. Well, it was
Yeah.
almost. But, yeah, I was deeply, deeply hurt by it. I was
Mm.
deeply taken advantage of. I was emotionally and spiritually abused through it. I own my part in it. Yeah, it's a humbling experience going through that. Also crazy. Like, look at Brian Jonestown. That one is bonkers.
I don't know if I know much about that.
That's the Kool-Aid one.
Oh, okay. The original, like quite a classic, yeah. But even the P. Diddy thing where you realise, oh, he's going to get out of jail and
Yeah.
he's still going to have lots of money, and his plays on Spotify have peaked because people get reinterested in him, and it's
They
not
still
fair.
win.
It's not fair, and it's almost like their role, these people, why they here, probably why those types of personalities exist, is to give people an opportunity to have an awakening in themselves. So suffering is still the most effective way of bringing us to our knees and surrendering. And I suppose in the final analysis, a personality like that who does cause a lot of hurt, I don't know, like you say, there's some people that are just like broken beyond repair from this. But there's other people who that was an awakening moment for them. I don't know, because
Yeah, it's
I think, is
interesting.
there any good? I don't know.
Yeah. What's their role in life, right? You think, oh, okay, at war. If we were at war, you'd want a narcissist to be at the front lines.
And a psychopath. They're useful.
Yeah. Yeah, like
Mm.
Winston Churchill was for sure, like,
Yeah.
had some really bad traits, but he was useful, a tool. What are the uses,
Well, they have to, else we wouldn't still have them. They would have been evolution would have got rid of them.
Self-obsessed people get shit done. I'm
Yeah.
going to build a bridge. You can't build a bridge. Well, I'm going to. Well, you can't. It's over 2 miles of water. Watch me.
Yeah. I
And
got
it's
to
like, you
prove
told
to
me you
everyone.
can't. Yeah. So it does get stuff done, but the
They leave this trail of disaster behind them.
Yeah, I call it the trail of dead. There's just
Yeah.
like this trail of bodies behind, of like hurt, like every CEO and all of these personalities just, and for somehow human beings are drawn to them.
Fascinating.
But Jesus' teachings are, he did not care for those types of people, right? Like, blessed are the poor, blessed are the low. Like, he hung out with like non-cool, non-gifted people. And I think like, I get a bit of comfort out of, now I can look at Jesus' life and stories without feeling uncomfortable, because I had to throw it all out for many, many years. But now I can look at it and think, yeah, he would, if he was here, if he was a real person, if he came back, he'd just walk away from all of those types of people. He'd go talk to the little person that's just like staring at the ground, wondering, what to do with my life. And I don't think he cares about those highfalutin, headstrong.
But somehow they still point us towards surrender, I suppose, and we wish him well.
Yes. I don't lie awake at night thinking about it. I don't have bitterness or anger towards it. I have scars that will always be there.
You're too busy living your best life.
Yeah, I don't give a crap. And
it's an interesting part of your story, though.
Yeah, it's a part of my story, and be careful, everybody.
A cautionary tale.
Yeah, watch out for super charismatic, manipulative people.
Well, cool. I've got to get going, but that was good. That was a good bio of that.
Memory lane.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was well overdue.
We tried to protect the names, but then we just went full send. Yeah.
Sweet.
All right.
Love you.
Love you, abs.
Bye.
Bye.